WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and our new addition to our family and our feline friend, Nala, who has joined us, as well as my birthday week, going into the Dundalk High Hall of Fame next week. So October is an action-packed month, aside from all of the hockey and the Ovechkin and the baseball playoffs and the NFL, which returns to Baltimore this week with the Chicago Bears for a little birthday celebration, but college football rolls on as well, despite the fact that Maryland's season took a little bit of a thud out in, oh, how I hate Ohio State. This guy covers college football as well as hoops. Longtime Fox Sportser, now doing it at all sorts of places, and you can follow him out on Twitter at Aaron_Torres. That's Torres. And despite the fact that he has a picture with Antonio Brown on his Twitter, I'm going to leave you alone because the Steelers stunk this weekend, and we're feeling good about it. We're smelling ourselves, as they say around here, Aaron Torres. How you been, man?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I mean, the only reason that, I have the Antonio Brown picture is because you're so big-time, Nestor. I can't get a picture with you, man.
No. I'll come out to L.A. right now. If it gets Antonio Brown off the front of your Twitter, dude, I'm all in.
Yeah, okay, well, there you go. And by the way, happy birthday. I had no idea that this was the big week.
Just send cake. That's it. At this point, I don't want to celebrate these things, but I do like a little cake and ice cream from time to time. There's no celebrating going on down at College Park right now, and I know we can get into lots of, angles and stuff, and maybe this takes us into the conversation we need to get into with the national championship. But boy, the Ohio States and the Oklahomas, these teams that have lost toward the top now, it's very hard to climb back when you've lost games early in the year. We have all these playoffs and all these more opportunities to lose. But for a team like Maryland taking on the toughest schedule in the land this year, boy, you got to do better than 62-14 against Ohio State. I mean, it just was not a representative effort. And I think more than ever, it sort of underscores there's about 10 really good teams out there, and then there's everybody else, man.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. As far as the 10 good teams and everybody else, I think you just hit on an important point, Nestor. I think we're starting to reach the point of the year where having one loss versus being undefeated doesn't really matter. I don't think anybody can watch Ohio State the last couple weeks. I believe they've won by an average of 42 points since that loss to Oklahoma, including, of course, Maryland this week. I don't think it really matters. If you have one loss, you're very firmly in the playoff picture. We know that Ohio State, the whole season is in front of them with Penn State, Michigan, all those kind of games coming up. As far as Maryland, I mean, look, it's what you said. They play the toughest schedule in college football. Oh, by the way, some of the games that didn't look tough are now much tougher. Central Florida, absolutely rolling. Michigan State better than we thought they were going to be. So I think it shows what you said, Nestor, is that once you get beyond that top tier, just about anybody can beat anybody else on any given weekend. But as I just said, I think that we're going to look back on this, this Maryland schedule and say, wow, there are a lot more quality teams than we even thought, and that was coming into the season when we knew that 3 top 10 teams were coming out of the Big Ten East, and that going to Austin in Week 1 was going to be a challenge as well.
Well, that all being said, these big bad wolf teams out there wind up getting taken down, or at least getting taken to the end where they have to pull off some miracle. In the case of Michigan losing this week, Oklahoma losing this week, these are tough losses in early October because it certainly gives you no more room. And, I guess the oxygen's going to be a little different up in Michigan right now, right?
Yeah, it was funny. I remember talking to Joe Davis, the great college football announcer for Fox, and he was at Ohio State the week after the Oklahoma game, and I asked him point blank. I was hosting Fox Sports Radio. I said, what is the atmosphere like? And he said, it's really tense in this building right now, as everybody kind of realizes that everything you're working with, everything you've worked towards with one more loss could potentially be down the drain. And so I think that is probably the feeling right now in Oklahoma. It's the feeling in Ann Arbor. But every program's a little bit different. I think Oklahoma, maybe it's a chance to reset, to maybe realize that you're not as far along as you thought you were, or maybe that you can't live off the reputation of that Ohio State victory forever. So it could be a blessing in disguise. But, yeah, no, that is the reality of college football. I mean, it's still better than the BCS era where one loss eliminated you basically from a chance at the championship. But I do think that we're looking at a scenario right now where, it's not necessarily the worst thing to lose a game, but at the same time, it does create for some tense moments, in the locker room, in the practice field, all those kind of things. The big thing, though, is, as I keep saying, one loss doesn't eliminate you in this kind of modern era of college football. So I think Michigan and Oklahoma specifically probably not feeling great today, but still a lot better than they would have been, 7 or 8 years ago in the BCS era.
He is Aaron Torres. You can follow him at Aaron_Torres out on Twitter. And then there's still Alabama and Clemson, right? I don't know where there's going to be a trip up there, where someone's going to get in their way. We're now working on the third straight season. We're getting to be halfway through this season now, and it looks like Alabama and Clemson will meet again. And then that, if you're going to prognosticate anything in Vegas, certainly with the kinds of potholes that Penn State and Georgia will have coming up. Maybe not so much Washington, TCU, some of these other teams, but when you play in the Big Ten and you play in the SEC, every corner is a boogeyman, right?
I think you could make the case right now that the SEC across the board is as weak as it's been in, my entire life watching college football. But those high-level games, look, Nestor, I think whether you're a TCU, a Washington, Penn State, a Michigan, Alabama, you're going to have to win 2 or 3 games that are really, going to kind of test your mettle. So for Alabama, it's what you said. It's facing Georgia potentially in an SEC championship game. It's facing Auburn in the Iron Bowl on the road. Auburn getting better every single week. If you're Clemson, incredibly, your toughest games might be behind you. That Florida State game usually decides the division, which ultimately decides the conference champion. But this year, Florida State is so down that you look at Clemson's schedule, you can make a case that Virginia Tech may be the toughest team on their schedule. Certainly their toughest road game. Also, they play NC State a little bit later down the road as well. So, to me, I don't know what conference is the best right now. I'd actually probably say it's your Terrapins, the Big Ten. But the broader point is that whoever you are, again, TCU with Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, Washington having to play Wazoo later in the year, whoever it is, you're going to have to win 2, 3, 4 big games. And I think that's the reality for all these teams. Although, as you said, Nestor, right now it does feel like Alabama and Clemson are pulling away from the pack yet again.
Well, it's nice for Georgia to get into this party, right? I mean, been a little while since it's been that heady, and they're winning big every week, beating the teams they're supposed to beat. You sold on the Bulldogs, Aaron Torres.
I am, and it's funny, Nestor, because I was one of these guys, I don't know if I ever discussed it with you, but I was not sold on Kirby Smart coming into this year. I mean, if you remember back to last year with Georgia, they should have lost to Missouri. They should have lost. They could have lost to Nichols, an FCS team. They do lose to Vanderbilt. And I looked at him and I said, oh my God, here we go with another Saban assistant that's totally overhyped and underqualified for his job. But I'll tell you what, man, year 2, it is a completely different team. They play, I think you could make a case, as good a defense as anybody in college football. That includes Clemson, that includes Alabama. And oh, by the way, the offense is continuing to roll. Maybe the offense a little bit even better with backup Jake Fromm in as the starting quarterback as opposed to Jacob Eason, who we all thought was the leader in the clubhouse coming in to be the starter this year. He goes down with an injury, and it might be a Wally Pipp situation where he never gets his job back. So I'm totally on board with you, Nestor. Look, if you want to make a case that Alabama and Clemson are the best 2 teams in the country, I won't argue. But if you want to say that based on what we've seen on the field between Georgia going to Notre Dame and winning, crushing Mississippi State at home, if you want to say right now that Georgia has the best resume or they should be in the argument for the top spot in college football, the number 1 ranking after 6 weeks or whatever it is, I have no problem with that argument. I think Georgia, to me, has been the most pleasant surprise of anyone in college football.
Well, they got Auburn on the 11th of November, and if Auburn can get there as well, that's going to be a hell of a game. That's actually the Ravens' bye weekend, but getting up later in the season, that's certainly one we got to circle on the calendar, right?
Yeah, it's funny because we always call for this expansion to the college football playoff, and we need to go to 8 teams and this and that. The SEC might have a de facto playoff a little bit later in the year because we're basically going to get a round robin. It's very much looking like we're going to get a round robin where Georgia plays at Auburn, and then, of course, the following week, Auburn will host Alabama. and then the winner of likely the Iron Bowl is going to be the SEC West champion. And then let's be honest, Georgia is going to run away with the SEC East the way that they're playing right now. So we could get Georgia, Bama in Atlanta for the SEC championship. So I think it's pretty cool that in a year, in a time where we're always demanding more, bigger playoff, more teams, this and that, we might get that de facto playoff between those three teams late in the year. By the way, could be looking for a similar situation in the Pac-12 if USC continues to win out, and either, probably realistically Washington continues to win out. They could be the two best teams by the end of the year in the Pac-12 and meet in that conference championship game as well.
And then there's Alabama and everybody else, right? At this point, right? Who's going to beat them?
In the SEC or nationally?
Well, who's going to beat them? When is a team going to knock them off?
Look, I think that they will. First of all, they're going to cruise into that Auburn game. I don't even think another game will be within.
Dude, they have Mercer on their schedule, November 18th. Mercer. How can that be legal?
Well, I that's one of the things that really kind of annoys me about kind of the way that college football is covered on a national basis. Credit to your Maryland Terrapins for scheduling so tough out of conference. But look, Ohio State played Army in week 2 or 3. Michigan played Air Force. Penn State played Kent State or whoever it was. The only difference is that Alabama plays their tougher games earlier in the year. They opened with Florida State. They, of course, had SEC, the SEC opener at Vandy. They play, Tennessee later this month. So to me, I've never understood the backlash to SEC teams just backloading their schedule. By the way, or front-loading their schedule, I should say. By the way, it's worked out really well for them in previous years because there's been years where they get a team into the national championship game because the Pac-12 and the ACC are dumb enough to play all their big games late. Hey, the TV partners love it. The fans love it. But you know who doesn't love it? The teams that have to play. Look.
Well, the team that loses doesn't love it. That's for sure.
And that's what I'm saying. I go back to, if you go back to that BCS era, late games in the season probably cost Oregon at least one shot at the national championship. It's cost other teams, I'm blanking on exactly who. I vividly remember one year, Oregon was absolutely rolling. They lose to Stanford, and there goes their national championship hopes. And, yeah, if they had played Stanford in week 3, maybe they beat them, and maybe instead of playing, Wyoming or whoever in week 3, they play them in week 9 or 10 like the SEC. I actually think it's a sharp scheduling move. The other thing is a lot of these teams play big rivals at the end of the year, Clemson and South Carolina, Florida and Florida State. So, look, you got to get in these games somewhere. I think we are in a better place as far as scheduling with college football than we've ever been with, as I said, the big out-of-conference games early, the Florida States versus Alabamas, the Clemsons versus Auburns, but then the out-of-conference games late with the South Carolina, Clemson, Florida State, Georgia Tech, stuff like that. So I've never had a problem with it. I understand people's complaints, but to me, I've just never understood it.
All right, man, you wrote a book on Kentucky. You're a college basketball guy as well as a college football guy. By the way, you can follow Aaron_Torres on Twitter. Just some thoughts on the scandal, the FBI, some sort of overview. And look, we're peeling back a massive onion here, right? There's going to be a lot of stories coming out, a lot more fallout, a lot more litigation, a lot more embarrassment. But let's just start with Pitino and work backwards, right?
Yeah, that's a fair way to do it. Look, in the small picture of what has already happened, yeah, that is the big story. And to me, I think it's kind of being underreported, Nestor. Like the fact that Rick Pitino himself was making calls to Adidas to get deals done. Nestor, you and I have been covering sports a long time. The one rule is the head coach never makes the phone calls. You got to keep your hands clean of this stuff. I always use this example, but say what you want about Hugh Freeze. He was, calling hookers on his personal cell phone or his work-issued cell phone. But, the NCAA investigated Ole Miss for the last 5 years, and they couldn't pin anything to Hugh Freeze. He doesn't get fired because of NCAA violations. He gets fired because he was dumb enough, again, to call prostitutes from his phone. So why do I say that? Why is Rick Pitino making these calls himself? It shows the arrogance, the unbelief that he is untouchable, and he is done coaching college basketball in just a truly disgraceful way for a guy that is literally one of the 2 or 3 best to ever do this to go out. In the big picture, as far as what's next, I'm going to be fascinated to see. I'm not sold that this is going to be a wide-ranging, 100 teams go down in this scandal process. Now, can it happen? Of course, absolutely. I think we're all smart enough to know that the 5 or 6 schools that have been busted so far aren't the only ones involved. But, again, what it comes down to me is, what is the FBI's end game here? The FBI didn't get into this investigation to bust college basketball coaches moving $5,000 or $10,000 to recruits or players on campus. There's a bigger fish to fry. I don't know if they're going after Nike. I don't know if they're going after your buddies at Under Armour in Baltimore, Adidas, what it is. But they're not trying to catch 100 different guys funneling $5,000 each to a bunch of college basketball coaches. So this thing, to me, I've said it from the beginning, and I stand by it. I think it's going to go as deep as the FBI wants. If they want to bust 100 programs, they're going to be able to come up with the evidence. The question becomes, though, what is the end game? Are they going after something bigger than just a couple college basketball coaches paying recruits and players?
He is Aaron_Torres. He covers all things college football and college basketball in a myriad of places. Tell everybody where they can find your work above and beyond Twitter. You're doing a bunch of stuff these days, right?
Yeah, I am. College football over at FanRag Sports. A lot of good writers at FanRag, including John Heyman, who's probably the best MLB writer going. I handle a lot of their college football coverage, so that's year-round. And I'm helping Seth Davis with his new venture at The Athletic. The Athletic is obviously a pay subscription site for all kinds of sports. College football with Stu Mandel, college basketball with Seth Davis, MLB with Ken Rosenthal. And so I'm doing a lot of stuff for them, too. So it's a busy time, but a very fun time, talking sports every single day of my life, and that's the only way I'd have it, Nestor. I'm basically trying to build my career much like yours. I'm looking to be the next Nestor Aparicio.
Well, you got to come to Baltimore, eat some crab cakes, get your hands dirty, and you're about 26 years late for that. But, hey, we always got room on a train around here, man. I always love having you on, talk a little college football, some college basketball. Maryland's certainly going to be in this national championship picture one way or another because they still play 4 more top 10 teams before the season's over. So we'll see how it goes. Aaron, be well, man. Great having you on, buddy.
Thank you for having me, Nestor. And again, happy birthday. Don't not too many, beverages. All right, you got a job to do.
Let them eat cake. Let them eat cake is what they say.
You're the inspiration for the next generation, Nestor. Just don't forget that, okay?
All right, I'm going to keep it classy, as they say around here. The BuyAToyota.com audio vault is there 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device to download, and you can listen from wherever you want on your mobile device. Little WNST goes all over the world. Our morning newspaper comes to you courtesy of our friends at Planet Fitness at PlanetFitness.com. That is $10 a month to join there, and it's free to get our newspaper each and every morning. It comes at 7 a.m. digitally to your email inbox. Our text service is our most electric service. Over 10,000 of you on it each and every day, and when there's breaking news, you get it first. There's never spam, never crop, as they say, and that's because our friends at Coons Ford of Security Boulevard wouldn't want it that way. We got to keep it straight for Dennis and all those folks over there. They are the SSV on WNST as well. Dennis will be here along with Pete and the group on Thursday. I'll be checking in. Luke will be checking in. The Ravens are on the backfields in Owings Mills. And last but never least, if you're looking for me, I am a very available individual. Nasty at WNST.net. Our beautiful new cat is up online on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and we stream live on our Facebook Live as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. Appreciate all the email birthday wishes this week, as well as all the love for the Dundalk Hall of Fame. And that happens next Friday, the 20th. We are going to have a Dundalk Appreciation Day here next Friday. Hope some folks come out, say hi, and celebrate the only Hall of Fame I'm ever going to get into, the Dundalk High Hall of Fame. I'll sing the alma mater next week. I'll spare you of all that this week. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports. Welcome back.